I'm going to introduce you to Anthony. Most of you, I'm sure, will know Anthony from Lotus Melbourne. And if not, here's your opportunity to get to know him. He's in a fortunate position to be the key man in terms of sales with Lotus Melbourne, and I'm sure he's been very busy recently with so much going on. Anthony has nearly 20 years of automotive industry experience, working with leading brands such as Fiat, Chrysler, Renault, Peugeot, Nissan and others, across areas including sales, after-sales, retail marketing, model line management and product planning. He's enjoyed many years of motorsport at club level, and I've seen him at the track, so no doubt about that, and track and super sprint events, including karting. Anthony is responsible for Lotus brand sales and marketing in Victoria and Tasmania, while also being a valuable contributor to senior management strategies for the Lotus Cars Australia business. In 2019, he enjoyed time at Lotus Driving Academy in Hethel, lucky him, to hone his driving skills, which we know is a very good topic. We've talked about that a bit. And he has also snagged one of only 6 Elise Sport 240 final edition models, which is coming in December. So he's very fortunate. Welcome, Anthony. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Vicky. Great to be here.
Excellent. Well, tell us a little bit about where you're at. I understand that you've just recently moved premises. Is that right?
Absolutely. As you can see behind me, this is the make.
Sorry, Anthony, I've actually accidentally muted you.
Am I back?
Sorry, Anthony, you are back.
That was short.
I know. I did that last time to someone. I apologise profusely. I'm too quick at muting people, and sometimes it accidentally also causes the presenter. So start again, please.
No problem. So thanks very much for having me tonight. Yes, in terms of the relocation, as you can see behind me, this is the makings of our new showroom down in South Melbourne in Brady Street. So we've been here, well, I've been here officially since the start of last week. The guys spent probably about 3 weeks through September relocating. Mark kind of leading the team in terms of putting all the documents together, all the paperwork, a lot of the logistics, and Alex and Chris did a great job. I guess a lot of the grunt work, anyone who's moved a business like ours would appreciate how much there is to do. So yeah, the guys did a cracking job to make the move across. Essentially, why did we move? For those of you that know our previous premises over in Cremorne Street in Cremorne, there's a lot of redevelopment happening in the area. When we moved there, we knew at some stage that there'd be a redevelopment, but it came up a little bit quicker than what we were hoping. So Mark again did a great job trying to find a new premises. It wasn't easy. He thought it'd be a lot easier than what it was, but we managed to find this great premises down in Brady Street, and looking forward to developing it over the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, is it actually a bigger space, Anthony, than what you had previously, or is it a bit?
It's slightly smaller. I guess ideally we would have liked probably a couple of 100 square metres more. The actual workshop space itself is probably about the same size, but again, those of you that know Cremorne Street, we had that breezeway section where cars were parked, where you drive in through into the workshop. So we've kind of lost that interior parking space, and the showroom is 2 levels, so we can't actually get cars upstairs. The total space is probably about the same, but in terms of cars on display, at the moment there's about space for about 4 cars where we had 6 or 7 previously. Positives, we've got a great frontage. I mean, I look across to my right and we have the city bypass. So in terms of exterior exposure, signage, that's going to be fantastic. There's a plan to to redevelop the facility in the context of all the new visual identity. Many people would have seen the lovely showroom over in Bahrain, I think it is, that's had the new visual identity palette brushed across it. Can't say we're exactly going to be at the same standard as Bahrain. We don't have Louis Vuitton next door, but I'm certainly looking forward to seeing the new showroom when all the new content, the new furniture, signage, etc., gets installed.
That sounds quite exciting. Do you think we'll be able to visit as a club in the future, given the space restrictions?
Well, it depends on how much the club grows, I guess. So I think we do have a decent amount of space here at the moment. So I haven't actually seen the updated COVID numbers, but certainly showroom upstairs, downstairs, and then out in the workshop facility, we've got plenty of space.
Great. All right, that's good to hear. Well, look forward to visiting at some stage soon. And yeah, given the last 12 to 24 months have been many and varied experiences for everyone, I guess that has combined with a number of things that have been going on in Lotus with final editions and new model releases. What's the sales update?
It's actually been pretty amazing 18 months. I started with the team back in April last year. I think I had my final meeting with Lee on the day the Grand Prix was cancelled. So they say timing's everything. Moving to sell British sports cars in a pandemic, but it's actually been a really strong period for the brand in Melbourne. The guys from the Simply Sports Cars business were really looking at ways to grow the Simply Sports Cars business, and trying to double the size of Sydney from a sales perspective was obviously going to be very difficult, but they saw an opportunity down here, and I mean, yeah, it's actually been really exciting, the success that we've had down here, to the point where we try not to rub it in too much, but we're actually outselling the mothership these days. So, I'm sure Richard doesn't like that from one extent, but I'm sure he's pretty happy from another.
Yeah, I bet it's pretty remarkable, isn't it? The different experiences and how that translates through to all sorts of luxury products. So it's probably, in hindsight, perfect timing for all of this to come together.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's been a bit of a perfect storm when you look at the key elements to, there's certain things that we've been able to do in terms of the focus that we've been able to put on the brand and the support. That's obviously helped, and having Mark's experience has been really great too, and the support from the guys in Sydney. But you're right. When you look at external factors, I mean, who would have thought that a pandemic would cause such a stimulus for domestic spending and premium spending? There's clearly the people that have done it tough through the pandemic, but there's clearly people that have done quite well. People reassess their life and what's important to them, and perhaps a little bit of that mantra of, well, I've wanted this car for a long period of time, or I've wanted to do this update for a long period of time, and I'm not going to wait anymore. Who knows what's around the corner? And I think when you combine that with what's been happening in the Lotus world and the announcement of end of production of these cars, these great cars that have been around for 25 years, there's been a bit of a call to action for sure in terms of two different types of buyers. When we're talking about new cars, the Elise buyers have been, by and large, they've been new to the brand. A lot of people who potentially have wanted one of these cars for a long time. I'm one of them. I lived in the UK in the late 90s when Series 1 was launched. I've always seen the brand as an Elise brand in my sphere of reference, and the opportunity to own one of the last ones, was too good an opportunity for me to pass up. So a lot of new people to the brand with Elise, first sports car coming from other brands, where predominantly Exige has been current Lotus owners, Elise owners, early V6 Exige owners who've kind of really been happy with their ownership experience and come to that decision whereby they've said to themselves, well, if I don't update into the last of the line now, I'm going to be looking in the used market in 2 or 3 years' time. So I think it's brought a lot of people's decision making forward. As a result, they've gone into new cars, they've traded current cars, and there's been a really strong demand in the used car market as well. So we've been quite successful in finding homes for those trade-ins.
Yeah, so that's a good segue then into you're giving us a bit of an update on what's the status of the final editions. I know there's a lot that's come and gone and stuff that's pretty much secured. So what's left?
Well, part of my brief from Mark was I don't want to move too many cars from Cremorne to South Melbourne. So so we pushed pretty hard, and I think we've got 2 new cars here in stock right now, a 390 final edition. The 20th anniversary behind me here is sold, and then we have a 420 final edition and a couple of demonstrators. We have probably sort of mid to high single figures of cars arriving. They're actually going down the line sort of at Hethel last week, this week and next week. And so we've got sort of mid to high single figures of cars arriving in December that are unsold. And certainly from a Lotus Melbourne perspective, that's kind of it. So we've got about 20 cars that are sold to customers that are being built at the moment as well, and they'll all be arriving in December as well. So it's going to be a busy time.
So is it only Exige final editions that are left then?
So Elise sold out in a month, literally. Of the 80 or so cars that we were allocated for Australia, there were just over 20 Elise, and they sold within a month. Typically, our sales mix is 3-to-1 Exige to Elise. So we use that ratio to order to put forward our allocation for final edition, and those Elise allocations got snapped up really quickly. So in terms of what's left, there's a handful of 390s and 420s Exiges. We were sold out with 430 Cup final edition, but we've had a couple of clients have to reconsider their purchase. So if anyone out there is looking for an opportunity on a 430 Cup, talk to us.
Right. Okay. Well, there may be some questions that come up about that. That certainly is exciting to know. So I guess from what I've heard, there's been a lot of interest in the new Emira, and just recently a little bit of information has been released about the final specs. So what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I think we're all pretty shocked at the level of interest in the car. I would say between Sydney and Melbourne, we've had well over 500 inquiries. A significant proportion of those came in the first 2 weeks. So we had a really busy time in the first probably 3 to 4 weeks, just trying to get back to people. It's been quite incredible. In terms of where those customers have come from, in terms of the orders, we've taken about 50 orders in Melbourne. So that's confirmed deposits, subject to pricing and specification, etc. I would say 90% of those 50 orders have come from clients who have never owned a Lotus before. So it's very different to Exige Final Edition, in that probably 85% of those clients were current Lotus owners. So it's people new to the brand, a very strong sort of interest from people that are current or previous owners of AMG product. So I don't think we would have seen those 50 orders if Lotus hadn't taken the decision to forge this new partnership with AMG. As good as we believe the automatic transmission is in the Toyota powertrain, the combination of the AMG brand and the dual clutch transmission has brought a lot of people across. If people are interested in kind of the mix of the orders that we've taken, I haven't seen the latest figures, but a month or two ago, we were looking at around 55% V6 manual, about 10% V6 automatic, and 45% AMG dual clutch. So clearly, without that powertrain and transmission, our orders probably would have been just over half of what they were.
Well, that's really interesting. So does that then correlate to the new interest in the marque, really?
I think so. I mean, I think the car, I think we'd all agree the car has a broader appeal, that those of us who love that Elise Exige concept, or that the analogue nature of that car, it is a very small group. And the car is in some ways, it's compromised because of its clear focus around the driver, whereas the new car is clearly designed and marketed to appeal to a broader range of customers. It's still very tight. It's not a big market when you look at that sports car market that Emira is going to compete in. You look at Porsche's numbers; they're not huge numbers for Cayman and Boxster. So it is still a very small market, but clearly there's a broader appeal with the things like the ease of use of the car, the ease of getting into and out of it, the creature comforts, the modern tech in terms of infotainment, heated seats, all those sorts of things. So, and I think that access to that dual clutch transmission to bring it up to customer perceived modernity, if you like, it ticks a lot of boxes for a lot of people. And it looks pretty good too.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely very popular, it seems. So, and it's really good to hear that people within the club have been part of those that interest in putting deposits down. What's the time frame or the rules, I guess, that apply to those that have put deposits and are subject to pricing and specifications? Is there a time frame on that?
There is. So we've been pretty flexible. Obviously, there hasn't been a lot of information, or information has come out in a stage-wise fashion. So you know, we've taken the approach that we're happy to take deposits. It's obviously important. Richard up in Sydney's been working really hard on trying to secure the right allocation to supply the demand, because the last thing any of us want to do is have to go back to clients and say, look, I'm sorry, we can't get you a car. So it's getting that right balance. We don't want too many cars, but we definitely don't want to be telling people, sorry, we can't get you one. So, so the process really, the initial stage was about putting forward an expression of interest. We have an agreement to purchase document between Sydney and Melbourne, effectively a contract of sale, but that was very high level and subject to pricing and specification being finalised. So now that we have V6 first edition pricing been released to the public last week, over the next few weeks we'll be going through the process with those clients to reconfirm their interest in the car, to work with them. The configurator was updated last night as well with the additional content based on first edition. We're going to be asking them to go back and look at the configurator, firm up their spec. We then need to submit an official order to the factory, take another $5,000 deposit, and then we move forward from there. If clients, for whatever reason, decide they don't want to proceed, they're refunded. If they decide they perhaps, for whatever reason, don't want to move forward with a first edition V6, then we can certainly look at moving that order across to a non-first edition V6 or an i4 AMG powertrain as well. So there's a fair bit of flexibility.
Yeah, that's good. And it's also probably a good segue into asking you a few questions about Lotus more broadly. You know, what's going on in terms of their product strategy, supply and demand, timeframes. You know, what's on the horizon? What's going on in the very interesting world of Lotus these days?
Well, yeah, just to start with Emira. The talk has been that the model will run for around 8 years, so it's going to have a full life cycle. We've already seen things like the GT4 race car. There's a lot of clever people out on the World Wide Web who seem to be very good on Photoshop and putting big wings on cars and front splitters and taking roofs off. We certainly from my perspective, I'm not close enough to be able to share or to be able to receive information on what the plans are beyond sort of what we all see right in front of us now. And we'd expect probably for the next 18 months to 2 years that the factory is going to be flat out fulfilling first editions and then non-first edition orders in both powertrains. AMG is about 6 months behind V6, so we won't see the first deliveries of the AMG powertrain until early 23. But who knows what happens after that. Lotus are obviously taking on board a lot of the interest in the car and some of the creative people out there. So, I'm sure we'd all love to see a car with big wings and a big splitter or a convertible version of the car going forward, but that all remains to be seen. In terms of the rest of the plans, there was a recent announcement about the factory that's very well advanced in China and the plans to manufacture a new range of electric vehicles under the Lotus brand out of China. So the sports cars will continue to be developed and built in the UK, and Lotus is going to build electric four-wheel drives. So that's if we thought Emira was a departure, this is going to be a massive departure for the brand and a really exciting new challenge.
Yeah, it's all very interesting what's going on, and I noticed the IPO of Volvo. And can you tell me though, Anthony, is for Hethel, because they've presumably they're referring to Hethel in terms of the manufacturer of the year, because I believe that's a UK thing. Is that right?
That's what I understand. Yes.
And is the Emira all planned to be produced then at Hethel?
That's my understanding. So they build a purpose-built factory in Hethel adjacent to the current factory, and that's the plan. So whether Lotus have plans sort of that they're not sharing with us, I don't know. But there's been a significant investment at Hethel and around for this new platform. So we'd expect to see that continuing on made in the UK.
Yeah, I guess that sort of gives us a little bit of comfort in the short term, at least, about what's going on. And good to hear that there's an 8-year run of the Emira plan. That's probably long term in terms of the motoring world, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that really aligns with the UK plan from 2030 to ban the sale of pure ICE engines. So from 2021 through 8 years, it's getting close to that kind of mark.
I guess, yeah, it's an industry-wide issue after that, isn't it?
I think also of note and of interest for members is the joint project with Alpine. So again, from what I understand, that will be UK-based, but it has been pushed back, I think, to 2026 was the date that I heard. So that's a joint electric sports car with Alpine, now moved back to 26, but UK based.
Okay, that's really interesting. I'm guessing there'll be a few questions when we open up about that. But before we do that, I'm sure that you guys, just like the rest of us in Lotus World for the club, are anxious to get out and start some events. So what have you got planned? What can we maybe tap into?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the things that we love doing. Our mantra here is very much, I'm sure a lot of you have heard it before, that have dealt with us, that, the first part of the journey for us is really finding the right car for you. And that once that's done, that's when the fun really starts. It's like, great, what events are we going to do together? What driver training, maybe what sort of little tweaks or mods are we going to do to the car to get a little bit more out of it? So events is a big part of what we do. I think Mark O'Connor, who many of you know, would I think Mark would happily spend every day at the racetrack if he could. So so he's really feeling the pain at the moment. I've had a little bit of a taste of what we do, and it's really great fun. So in terms of what's coming up, we do have some track days planned, some driver training through Lotus Melbourne Driving Academy. There's three dates at this stage in November and December. Sandown on the 15th and Phillip Island on the 30th and the 1st. They're already fairly heavily subscribed, so if that's something you are interested in, it'd be worthwhile getting in contact and trying to reserve yourself a spot or at least a wait list. Mark's got another little project on the go at the moment, potentially for early December, which I probably won't say too much about at the moment in case we're not able to get that off the ground. And then the other big one is really Tarmac Rally and Tarmac Rally Tour. So many of you will be aware that the High Country's been pushed back now from November to February, and Targa Taz from March to April. We're pretty excited about that in some ways because we were pretty concerned that that High Country wasn't going to happen at all for this year. So it's kind of great news that at least it is running, albeit that it's been pushed back to February. Those of you who have done a tour, I think I enjoy Targa Tour almost more than doing track. That opportunity to drive closed roads with no oncoming traffic, using the whole road, no police radars around the corner. It's really, I think, where these cars really come into their own is in that type of environment. So if you haven't done it before and you're thinking about it, by all means, give us a call and have a chat. And well, there's actually a lot of really good content on the Simply Sports Cars website from some of our clients that have been on the events. So that'd be a really good place to start as well.
Yeah, I agree. It's very good news that it's moved to February. That's what happened with Targa High Country this year. Moved from November last year, and it was lucky that it was be able to be held at that time. But for anyone that hasn't done this sort of event, it is really exciting, and I definitely recommend join the tour group as a bit of a taster. In fact, our Snowfields tour takes in, which is a much more leisurely social event, but it will take in the roads of the Targa High Country largely, and that's planned for February as well. All right, Anthony, well, I really appreciate all of that update, and I'm guessing that there's a few questions. I'm actually there's been a couple of things come up on chat, so I'm going to point firstly to Eddie, if you can unmute and ask your question, because you've got one specifically here about a new lease. Are you there, Eddie?
Yes, I'm here. Anthony, yeah.
Where are you, Eddie? Where are you? You look like you're in the garbage bin.
I'm in the dark as always.
I hope it's not garbage night.
No. There's been news of a new lease for another 4 years, I think.
Right.
Is this fact or fiction?
I think you guys have seen the same product plan that we have, and the only sports car that we're aware of at the moment is the electric partnered car with Alpine. So whether that's called a lease, I couldn't say, but as far as we're aware, in terms of the current plan, there's just that one car.
Yeah, because the design that I've seen in the article actually looks like one of Danny Bassier's old designs from about 10 years ago.
Right.
But they're stating that it's going to be a new electric car. So who knows?
So the Alpine project is definitely 100% electric.
Yep.
So potentially that nameplate could be revived with a new car.
Okay, yep. Because I thought Lotus were also thinking of selling the Elise platform to other manufacturers.
Yeah, there was some talk on the internet about Caterham, but I haven't really heard any news on that.
Yeah, which would mean the Elise name wouldn't be available then, I'd gather.
I'm not sure whether they're going to, if they were going to do that, whether they'd sell the intellectual property rights to the name or just the technology.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
No worries.
Thanks for that. And I'm going to now swing over to Stephen Harrison. What picture do you have going now, Stephen? You can unmute yourself and reveal yourself. What do you look like now? Last time I saw you, you had a moustache.
No, I've just gone back to the bigger television now.
Oh, you should. It was quite entertaining there for a while. I don't know whether you saw it. It was
Yeah,
a pirate and a
I
moustache.
can move through them, but
yeah, they're very cute. Okay, you've got a question for Anthony.
yeah, I just want to ask Anthony about the public transport links in and out of the new digs, actually, because a bit spoilt previously with the old place, because you could just leave your car behind and trot up to the Richmond station and go home. So, just wondering if the tram stop or anything's nearby.
We're not too far from Montague Street, so just trying to think. So we're basically right at the back of the Docklands. So if you know the former Holden site, the Holden dealership site, which is now Mazda, and the Hyundai site is just next door to it. We're just basically down the street from there. So that's a good question. It's probably something we should have a bit of a look at. But yeah, I would say the close I think we'd be like 10 minutes walk into sort of where the DFO is.
Okay.
5-10 minutes. Yep. I mean, obviously there are plans down here for the future for things like light rail, but yeah, at this stage, I'd say tram would be the closest.
No problem.
Thank you.
It still seems like a convenient spot, but yeah, maybe there's a few logistical things that would be helpful to understand a bit more, especially if we have an event and want to, visit you en masse. But even for those that are just wanting to drop by, just a little bit of information might be handy to distribute. Anthony?
Oh, there's definitely plenty of parking out the front. So in terms of, I know Cremorne was a bit of a challenge with the residential area, but after hours in particular, there'll be plenty of parking here.
Oh, that's good to hear. Okay. Matt, you've got a question for Anthony. Are you able to unmute yourself so you can ask that in person?
Certainly can. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
Lovely. Yeah, just a quick one. I was wondering, with these sort of impressive sales numbers that you're seeing come through early days for the Emira, and the fact that the development of Cremorne was a catalyst for you guys moving, to what extent do you reckon you'll need to sort of invest in new equipment and in staff there? Like, are you planning on sort of going about the sales stuff just with yourself and Mark, and, is the current service capability going to stand up as well?
Great question. It's certainly something that I've sort of been in some discussions with Richard up in Sydney as to, I guess it starts. I would think that over the next couple of years, we will move to a kind of modus operandi, if you like, whereby we have a couple of stock cars potentially, we have a couple of demonstrators for the different powertrains, but everything essentially coming in is going to be sold. So it's going to be quite a different way of operating. But in terms of the way the team may look going forward from the sales perspective between here and Sydney, it really starts with the volume of supply that's available to us in terms of cars, and then you can build a business plan around that, and then that will cascade down to, I guess, looking at your costs and what you can afford and what you can justify to actually support that growth. So there's certainly a lot of things that I'd like to be doing. Certainly when I came to the role 18 months ago, that I would have liked to have done that I haven't had the opportunity to do, partly because of COVID, but also partly because you kind of, without wanting to sound a little bit cocky, you kind of become a victim of your own success. So the more cars you sell, the more work you generate to actually support the sale of those cars. So yeah, I think there's still some discussion that needs to be had with that. There's still a few unknowns. Now we've had an indicative number for Exige V6, for Emira V6 first edition volume for next year, but until that whole kind of picture is in place, it's kind of hard to then work on a resource plan. From an after sales perspective, we've got Alex and Chris at the moment. Mark's a lot closer to that than what I am, but I imagine there's going to be increased demand across all areas of the after sales side of the business, whether it's service parts, collision repairs, things like that. So yeah, they're exciting challenges to have, I think, growth.
Thanks for that, Matt. And yeah, Anthony, that is a good question, and I guess we'll see how we go. Since in the last 18 months, that sort of beckons the question about whether people have been opportunistic in terms of upgrades. Have you been busy in the workshop?
We have. I mean, obviously we've had periods of closure, which through the lockdown, which has been a bit of a challenge. I think there was one period where we were closed completely. But we've had some good project work to keep the guys busy and keep things moving forward. We've got some more competition builds coming up down here. And then as the car park, or as the owner base down here grows, the need for routine servicing obviously is going to increase, or has increased. And then I guess the other side of things is the events, because we know when customers are using their cars, they're needing services, they're needing brakes, they're looking to do upgrades. So hopefully when things get back to normal, COVID normal, in terms of events, that's really going to push things along from an after-sales perspective. But we've got to manage that as well, because we don't want customers waiting 3 weeks for a service either. So it's yeah, like on the sales side, we've just got to manage that growth, and managing it from a top-down perspective in terms of the resource to apply to the tasks.
Okay. Rod has a question. So, Rod, are you able to ask that yourself?
Yep. Hi, Anthony. The initial timeframe for the Emira i4 was talked about being sort of October, November, Australian delivery 2022. The email last week from Lotus Australia was Q1 23. So is that an Australian allocation issue, or is that a global build issue?
From what I understand, it's more of a global issue. So with the new powertrain, it's the project is obviously they're not as advanced as they are with the V6, which is known well. So that's pushed that timeline back probably 2 to 3 months.
When do you expect the configurator to be updated to include the i4 options?
So what we've been asked to do from a national perspective is follow the UK's lead. So I'm sure everyone's been following what's been going on globally. The UK announced an entry price to the range. They then recently announced the V6 first edition pricing. So there's kind of a bottom and a top, and then they'll look to fill in the space in between with the other detail. And then we'd look to, along with other markets, fall in line with that timing with the UK. So in a sense, we need to follow their lead. And I guess they'll release that information when they feel comfortable that they can then proceed through and begin to build those cars in a timely manner.
Yeah, but that initial low-end price for the i4 was not a first edition.
Correct.
So
the idea was,
who have money down for an i4 first edition,
yep,
would really like to know what we're up for.
Yep. So we had some discussion about this last week, leading into the V6 pricing being announced. The ballpark, we've always had the position here, certainly at Simply Sports Cars. We've been talking to people is to allow each of the markets got asked, or each of the key markets got asked what they'd like to see in that first edition, and pretty much unanimously we went back and said we'd like to see a really well spec car with quite a number of option boxes ticked, but kind of a value equation in that. And so that's essentially what we've got in terms of I guess a number. I would be looking at around that 15K mark for the V6. So if a first edition is 184,990 plus on roads, then you'd be looking at around that 170 mark for the non-first edition. If you apply that same logic to the price point that was announced last week in the national press release, the talk was from 150. If you add 15 to that, you're assuming that the spec is like for like in terms of first editions. You're looking at around that 165 mark. Okay.
So today I spec'd up a first edition manual V6 in the configurator. Came out in Australian dollars basically at 190,000. Mm-hmm. Then jumped on the Victorian SRO website to calculate the stamp duty payable on that. Mm-hmm. It was $17,500. Right. It's only about 8,000 in Sydney and 9,000 in Brisbane. So, yep. Can I buy my car through New South Wales, please?
If you've got an address up there, it's not where you buy it; it's where you register it. So, if you have an address up there, you can buy it from us, and we'll get it registered up there for you.
I think I know a club member or two that's got a place in Palm Cove. So, yeah, okay.
Yeah, well, you can imagine, we do hear stories of some of the very premium brands, and we're talking about clients that are spending $600,000-700,000 on a car, and the stamp duty difference is $50,000-60,000. Yeah. And the people that can afford to spend that amount of money on the car, they find ways around it. So, look, I've got an address in Sydney. That's where I'm from. Moved to Melbourne 9 years ago. We've still got a house up there, so people find ways.
All right, so I can rent your house for a week.
I've got a lot of people on the screen watching, so I couldn't possibly say we'll split it 50-50.
Very nicely done.
Yeah. It's frustrating, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure everyone here spends time on car sales, those types of platforms, and we list our new cars at full drive-away price. And when customers list the price, when customers look at we constantly get the question, why is your car more expensive than the one in Western Australia or in Brisbane? And I'm sure it costs us in terms of inquiries. We have pretty good relationships with the other dealers, and at the end of the day, we'd like to look after our local clients. But it's very frustrating from our perspective.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, mate.
No problem.
Yeah, stamp duty is a frustrating issue in Victoria generally. It's the same for property. We seem to be the most expensive in Australia here in Victoria. So, yes, I have heard of some interesting ways to get around it, but won't condone any of those. Good luck with that. So I haven't got any more questions on the screen coming up. Eddie has suggested, though, do you want to mention what you've found about transport?
Yeah, I'm just looking at Google. The easiest way that I could see, if you're coming into the city by train, you can simply get on a 109 tram heading south, goes behind Jeff's shed, down that way, and you get off just past Montague Street Bridge, and then it's about a 9-minute walk. So Not the easiest options, but it's possible. Get a bit of exercise at the same time.
All right, thanks for that, Eddie. It sounds like there's good parking at least, which is something we didn't get at Cremorne. So I think many of us will be driving to the new Lotus Melbourne venue. Now, Peter Rebecki has come up with a question. Peter, are you able to ask that one for yourself? Or it's a comment, maybe?
Yeah, I'll just get to unmute. Company registration might be one way around the stamp duty issue. If someone was to have 50 letterboxes at their Sydney address or their Queensland address, you might be able to have a branch office in a number of states.
Yep, it could be.
I think the key thing with registration interstate is you need to have a customer number. So whether that's an individual or a business, they'll have their own sets of criteria to which they'll need to be satisfied on that. But yeah, I'm sure there's ways to do it. Thanks
for that, Peter. So I don't have anything else that's come up in the chat, but everyone that's online is very welcome now to unmute and see if you can grab the attention of us all by asking a question, or if you've got a comment to add, you're very welcome. Anyone got anything to say or got a question for Anthony?
Hi, Anthony. Yeah, I'll go for it. Anthony,
Mark,
the camera that's working is actually the one under the big screen TV, not the one on your notebook. So if you look over at the big screen TV, then there you go.
Thanks for the tip, mate.
I think it's worked very well either way, Anthony, so don't be concerned.
Yeah, I was just giving you my 100% attention, Vicky.
Excellent. Thank you to you both. There was a question there from Grant. Do you want to? Yep, go for it.
Hi, Anthony. Nice to see you all. I picked up earlier you were saying that the Lotus was going to start producing electric SUVs. Are they intending to? It's probably not something that's of any excitement to anyone on this call at all, but is this something that's going to be a high volume production just to get the brand of Lotus out there to the masses, or what's the idea behind that for the company?
Well, I think if you look at a lot of the other premium, or most of the other premium brands, they've kind of headed down that path. When you look at SUV, that is the growth in terms of volume. Having spent some time in product planning, working for other OEMs, the profitability of an SUV, it doesn't really cost that much more to build than a sedan on the same platform, but what you can actually ask for that product in a marketplace is obviously more. So the profit margins are higher. Obviously, there's the electric factor as well, with the market globally heading in that direction. So I'm sure Lotus see that as a growth opportunity. Porsche's the classic example that you hear the stories of how the SUV sales pay for the development of the sports cars these days. So, but saying that right here, right now, if you looked at the drill down into the VFAX data and you looked at the sales and the market opportunity for premium electric SUVs, it's not a massive volume. So I'm sure that'll change with time. But there's talk of this new E-segment SUV, which is a Cayenne Volvo XC90 competitor X5. The volume in that segment in Australia right here, right now, is quite small. In other markets, it might be a lot bigger, but clearly Lotus sees that's an opportunity to grow volume and brand exposure and profitability.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thanks for the question, Grant. I think that it's an important one in the context of strategically what we see going on at Lotus. Wouldn't you agree, Anthony? I mean, if the whole industry is moving especially to electric. Forget about all of the other drivers. Lotus, for survival reasons, would probably be amiss to not be looking strategically at those sorts of models. Is that right, Anthony?
Yeah, I think absolutely that's the case. So we're all across the many stories of the profitability levels of the sports car business in the UK and the number of times that the business has come into difficulty. And I think they see you can't sustainably grow a business that's selling a couple of thousand sports cars a year. Sports car segment is very trend focused as well. So typically your first couple of years are going to be your strongest in sales, and then something else comes along that's newer and fresher and more exciting. And so trying to sustain that business over a product life cycle is really difficult. Whereas with SUV and more mainstream product, it's a lot easier to do that over that typical 7-8 year time frame.
Do you think, Anthony, that we're going to move towards more of a homogenous type of branding in the longer term? We stand apart at the moment.
Look, I'd hope not. So my experience previous to Lotus was with Fiat Chrysler, and specifically with product planning for Italian brands. And I draw some similarity to Alfa Romeo, which I had a lot of involvement with the product strategy for that brand in Australia. And they realised that they had to branch out. That company is known as a sports sedan and sports coupe brand, and they've realised that they need to move into SUV to try to grow, to move with the market, and they're moving into electric as well. And they're having a lot of similar issues, if you like, to what we'll probably experience with Lotus. It's a massive shift, and it's that whole challenge between being true to your roots and to your brand DNA and your brand pillars, and your history, and trying to capture that into the new product, but also trying to appeal to a broader market. So. And there's that whole kind of that balance between being a sports car, a performance brand, and a premium brand. And brands like Porsche have done a very good job in being able to. They were a sports car brand first and foremost, but they're very much a premium brand now. And I think Alfa Romeo and Lotus as well certainly have some credentials in the future to have credibility as premium brands, but it's also a big challenge. Certainly the established Germans. We in a couple of previous roles we've talked about that Sunday afternoon barbecue conversation, and with a brand like Lotus or Alfa Romeo, you're always going to have those people that are kind of on the fringe and early adopter type people who are prepared to step outside of the normal. And that Sunday afternoon barbecue conversation where if you start, the conversation comes to cars and, the stereotypical guys out at the barbecue stoking the sausages, or the girls in at the kitchen drinking the shardies, and the topic comes to I bought a new car. If you tell them that you bought a XYZ German SUV, that's kind of the comfort zone, and everyone pats you on the back, and that's a definition of your success. If you tell them that you bought a Lotus SUV, they're going to kind of look at you strangely as if, like, what the hell would you do that for? But certainly people like me, I love to have those barbecue conversations, and I go, well, you guys don't know what you're missing out on. These things are awesome. I'm not the sheep, but there's a big challenge. You're never going to be able to drag all of those German buyers across to your brand because they're too comfortable and safe where they are. But there's certainly always an opportunity for the fringe buyer who is looking for something different. And that's where I think Lotus will come in going forward.
Some very good points here, Anthony, actually, which probably lead well to Peter's next question because it is around positioning in the market. Peter, are you able to ask this question?
Yeah, Anthony, and it's not I'm not holding you to ransom to this one, or trying to beat you up. But with Elise, the entry point to Lotus was around the 100,000 mark. You know, give or take 10, whatever. With Emira, it's going to be around 200,000. Is that seen as a problem?
So with Emira, if the pricing does come in for the i4 AMG at around that 150 MSRP in Victoria, you'll be looking at about 168. So absolutely, to your point, there is a big jump up, but you know, that's the strategic direction that the business has taken. You know, obviously we've actually been much stronger in this market, as I touched on earlier, with Exige. So we typically globally, Elise was a stronger seller than Exige, but in Australia we sold 3-to-1 Exige. So, and you look at the volume of some of the competitors for Elise, you know, the 4C, the Alpine A110, they sold, and 4C I knew quite well from my previous role as well. They were sold, you know, 20 cars a year. So they're tiny volumes. You know, I'd like to think that, you know, I'd like to think that we sell significantly higher numbers of Emira than we have of Elise, even though the price point's higher.
Might be true.
Well, it's looking okay so far, but it's the honeymoon period. So we'll see how it goes 2 or 3 years in. That'll be the test.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony. I think most of the current club members, you know, are probably the same as you at the barbecue at the moment. Happy to be that minority because there's so many things that we appreciate about the cars and the brand at the moment. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all unfolds in the year ahead. I'm sure if we have the same meeting in 5 years, that it will be quite different what we'll be looking at and talking about for the future of Lotus.
Yeah, look, and I have to say that's going to be one of the big challenges for us as a business. You know, Lotus Melbourne, Simply Sports Cars, Lotus Cars Australia, is, you know, certainly between here and Sydney, we've built the business around sports cars and the love of driving, and you know, the client base is going to change. Certainly with Emira, I've spoken to lots of clients who maybe not necessarily were initially sort of really focused on track and events, but when you talk to them, it kind of opens their eyes. And I think some of you know that I own a German sports car from another brand that I've had for quite a number of years, and I get a lovely premium experience every time I take that car in for a service. But they don't know anything about me. They don't know how long I've had my car. I've never been invited to a track event or you know, even a drive type event. So I think there's still an opportunity within this brand and what we do to create that type of experience with the clients, no matter what they're driving. Will we see electric SUVs down at Phillip Island? Maybe not, but maybe that's an entry point for a lot of people to the brand who never would have considered it the brand in the first place. And all of a sudden they'll realise what else there is on offer, and they'll be asking us about second-hand Elises and Exiges to put in the garage for the weekends.
Yeah, I hope that's absolutely the case going into the future. There'll still be a little niche there that we can all sit in, that sits alongside the brand and its future, as well as the love and passion about what we currently have.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't have any more questions in the chat, but would very much like to call out to everyone on the call. Last call, if you would like to ask a question or have any comments, you're very welcome right now to jump in.